The time is now 7:31. We have a quorum. Good evening and welcome to the February 1st, 2024 fiscal year 2025 Superintendent's Proposed Operating Budget Public Hearing. My name is Judy McIntyre, Board Chair. Before we begin, I would like to ask everyone to turn off any wireless communication devices to avoid any technical interference with the microphones and taping of the meeting. This meeting is currently being live streamed via YouTube. We also have Spanish interpretation services available for this evening. Ms. Lopez, please announce that Spanish interpretation is available by clicking on the globe icon at the bottom of the screen.
La interpretación en español está disponible para los espectadores haciendo clic en el icono del globo en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Haga clic en ese globo y seleccione español.
Thank you so much. For viewers who are not able to observe at this time, the meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on Prince George's County Public Schools YouTube channel. This evening's meeting of the Board of Education is convened for the sole purpose of receiving public feedback on the fiscal year 2025 Superintendent's Proposed Operating Budget, which was presented on December 7, 2023. The Board of Education appreciates your participation in this public hearing to voice your opinions on the fiscal year 2025 Superintendent's Proposed Operating Budget. We value the public's input to help us meet the needs of our students and staff in Prince George's County Public Schools collaboratively. Ms. Lopez, please call the roll.
Mrs. Adam Stafford,
Here.
Ms. Busa Strother,
Here.
Mr. Briggs,
Present.
Dr. Harris,
Aquí.
Dr. Harris, Mr. Jackson,
Here.
Mrs. LaSalle Frazier, Dr. Juanita Miller, Dr. Zipporah Miller,
Present.
Mr. Murray, Mrs. Rout, Ms. Walker,
Present.
9 members present, we have a quorum.
Ms. Mickens Murray,
Yes. I see Mr. Briggs. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Lopez?
no, nothing. I just called your name.
Oh, okay. Thank you. We will now hear from our registered speakers. You have registered to speak in a public comment forum where the Board of Education will listen to your comments, but will not address your comments. You have 3 minutes to make your presentations. You may not relinquish any part of your speaking time to another individual, nor address individuals or issues with profanity or derogatory terms. If you violate these guidelines, you will be warned once. If you continue, your comments will be muted, and you may be removed from the meeting. Speakers are encouraged to use titles rather than names. For example, chair, board, member, superintendent, principal, etc. We thank you for adhering to these guidelines. Our first registered speaker for this evening is Robin Brown, Individual, Safety and Security.
Good afternoon, Chair. The first person on the list that is actually in the meeting is Mr. Calvin Lanier.
Thank you, Ms. Barton. So, Mr. Calvin Lanier, Individual, overpayment for local 2250 employees security. Is Mr. Lanier, do I see him?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to unmute. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Trying to, I wasn't really prepared to speak right now because I just logged on, but good afternoon, board members and Superintendent Mr. House. My name is Calvin Lanier, and I am a lead investigator with PG County Public Schools. I'm also a member of the local 2250. On July 7, 2023, I received an overpayment of about $3,500. After communicating with my colleagues, my supervisor, and my payroll, and other members of 2250, it was clear this was an overpayment. I've made several attempts by phone, email, to try to rectify this situation, so I can reimburse them for the overpayment. And this was back in July. I haven't heard anything for several months until October of 2023, when I received a letter saying that PG County Public School System was going to take money out of my check to get their money back for the overpayment. After I tried several times to get my money back from July to October, and then I found out that transportation, who's also part of my union, 2250, were able to keep their overpayment. So I was confused to why transportation got to keep their money and didn't have to pay their money back, but every other chapter of 2250 did. I found that was unfair, and it has caused some issues between our union, and I feel as though that if security chapter has to pay their money back as well as everybody else, then either we all pay the money back or we all don't. I don't think that one entity, which is transportation, should keep their money and don't have to pay it back, but everybody else does. That is very unfair. And I hope that you understand what I'm trying to say. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
All right. You have a blessed day.
So we will go back to the top to see if Robert Brown or Joseph Hand or Jason Gordon, are they in the queue?
No, none of them have arrived as of yet. The next
Okay.
person that is available is Monique Roberts.
Okay, we will go to Monique Roberts. Individual overpayment of Department of Safety and Security personnel.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent House. As you heard from my colleague, there was an issue with money. I'm speaking on behalf of some of my colleagues. We really have been trying to rectify this moment to the point where some of us, when we saw that it was an overpayment, reached out to payroll and wanted to send it back immediately. The issue that really makes this unfair is that when we actually tried to do that, we were told that they wasn't sure if it was an oversight or it was it a transition problem, and no one got back to us. Myself personally, I did emails, I called, I even held on to my money so that I can send it back. And months later, from July all the way up until October, I got a letter saying that they were going to take the money out of my check, and that that was the only way that it can be given back. I thought that was very unfair, especially after I had been trying to give the money back since July. And then later on to find out that during a union meeting that another chapter from my union was able to keep theirs. And we are now being deducted out of our pay, every pay, for money that we were, that we tried to give back in July. I want to believe that the board and everybody is doing everything fairly, and that if we have to pay ours back, that transportation will have to pay theirs back as well. I mean, fair is fair. I don't believe that any position that is held by PG County Schools is better than the other. We all do equal rights equally to make sure everything works, function, or whatever. We are a small chapter, we are a small amount. I do understand that transportation is bigger, but that still should not make a difference either way. it was money, it was PG County funds. I'm more than willing and happy to pay it back because I know it wasn't mine, as well as all my colleagues. But to hear that another chapter was able to keep theirs and nothing was done to the personnel who made the mistake or to force them to pay it back, I think that that is very unfair and that it should be rectified and maybe be considered along with the included into the budget as far as getting that money reallocated. I appreciate you and thank you.
Thank you. And although we don't comment, the right people are on this call regarding that issue. Let's go to Miss Miss Shannon Reed.
Ms. Reed is not here. The
Okay.
next person on the list is Mr. Timothy Meyer.
Okay, we recognize Mr. Timothy Meyer, Mount Rainier Elementary PTO, investing in safe routes and protecting the blueprint.
Good evening, everyone. Many of you know my primary request for tonight for PGCPS to invest in hiring a dedicated Safe Routes to Schools coordinator. We can go after state and federal funds for built infrastructure improvements. We can and will continue to push county officials to hire more crossing guards. We can work with the county and municipalities to make localized investments and to make this issue a priority in Annapolis. But what we need PGCPS to do is to find room in a $2.8 billion budget to have at least one senior staff member focused on safe routes. That will show every other entity that this is a PGCPS priority. You all know that I'll put in as much time and effort as needed to make this a reality, and can do my part by continuing to work with other parent leaders. We can give you the popular support and elevate the importance of this issue, but it will take time to create safe passage plans for every school, and we need to get started now. We must also remember one of the most important things that each of us can do is that we must fight to protect blueprint funding. I know the budget crunches that we face. I've been at the table agonizing over tough choices at my own school. An extra teacher or 2 paraprofessionals, funding for supplies or field trips or programming. We all know that education is underfunded, but rather than fighting among ourselves, one school or one part of the county fighting against each other, it's on each of us to stand up and make sure PGCPS gets every dollar that we deserve. Do our best with the pie we've got, but never stop fighting for a bigger one. This board doesn't control blueprint funding, but you're each public officials with the extra megaphone that comes along with your office. You all have networks of parents who can be briefed and activated. And as we look at the budget and the difficult choices that we face today, imagine the choices that we'll face if we can't keep the blueprint fully funded. We see the warning signs from Annapolis and county leaders and must all send a united message. No cuts to education, period. And we can't afford to leave any state dollars on the table either, which nearly happened thanks to some county council games over the last few weeks on school construction. I want to publicly thank our council member in District 2, Wanika Fisher, for rallying her colleagues around the Educational Facilities Master Plan and make sure we get every dollar that PGCPS is due. I'm asking all of you to stand behind the plan that we've been working towards for the past several years. Thanks to all of you, and I know that we face difficult choices in the coming weeks and months ahead as we work through our budget. But every child has the right to get to and from school safely. And when it comes to safe routes to schools, our kids can't wait. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Miss Jana Parker, and individual, the budget.
So I put J.M. Parker because I keep telling you how to pronounce my name correctly. So we're going to get this done today.
Okay,
It's
let's do it.
Jana. It's Jana,
Jana, okay,
but you can refer to me as Mrs. Parker.
okay, Mrs.
All
Parker.
right. Thank you. So first, I want to start off by saying that there definitely should be more of a clarification to the public about the blueprint, the county's responsibility to the blueprint, and then what has been done historically around the blueprint. I heard the last speaker, but I didn't see him fighting Hogan for the $93 million that had to be returned to PGCPS that he wanted to remove. That was myself and others on the front line for that. Secondly, since we're talking about the budget, I'm going to talk about how there should be an expansion of after-school programs and summer programs. The funding should go for that. There also should be funding to expand and increase oversight for charter schools and homeschooling in relation to communicating and support. I for years said that I do not feel like there's adequate or appropriate oversight of our charter schools within the area. Some are performing at the same level as the local schools. And so it's just kind of like, well, people put their kids in charter school expecting a different result. Not to say that our public schools, non-charters, don't perform well, but it's to say that this is the expectation and there hasn't really been appropriate governance or oversight. So expansion for funds in that. Also to increase for specific supports and money for girls' athletic programs beginning in middle school. We have a lot of girls that don't even begin to play sports into high school. And the sooner that girls start sports, the longer and more, the more reasonable it is to think, or the studies show that they actually have a healthier, longer life. They have better access to educational opportunities, scholarships, and things of that nature. And I would just like to see that, as well as increased funding and focus on special education, specifically TAG programs and non-specialty TAG schools. A lot of our children are identified as TAG, but they're not actually getting the programs that are necessary. Increasing funding and oversight for autism programs, the 504 and the IEPs, better oversight for paying for school construction. It was just a travesty that you actually had to think about pulling that from the operating fund. That's terrible. And also for there to be an allowance of the board to focus on PLAs and that the administration follow their directive and adhere to what they choose to do. Also to increase funding for buses and transportation. That is a major issue for parents throughout the community. And then increased oversight and connectivity for school community nonprofits and organizations that PGCPS already has MOUs with. I've talked to several different groups that have MOUs with PGCPS that PGCPS doesn't utilize, but we have MOUs with them. And so it's just, you did this whole press conference about MOUs and how these particular organizations are supposed to help the school community, but you don't actually do it. And I see some confused faces. So if anyone wants me to have a conversation offline and where I can drop names and times and we can go through what you don't use, we can do that as well, because I'm available. And then finally, increase oversight for community schools and the spending for, I'm going to finish my statement. Increase oversight for community schools and their spending in relation to how the community schools program should be run.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Parker.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Miss Barton, are there any more additional speakers in the?
No, Madam Chair, there are no more who have
She
joined.
didn't have to go after me.
I appreciate that. Thank you. There was one written comment which has been posted on board docs. Next steps. Thank you all for attending the first February 1st, 2024 fiscal year 2025 Superintendent's proposed operating budget public hearing. We hope to see you at the next virtual budget public hearing on February 15th, 2024. We encourage the public to visit the board webpage for the Zoom links to gain access to the session. The time is now 7:50 and the February 1st, 2024 fiscal year 2025 Superintendent's proposed operating budget public hearing is adjourned. You may stop the recording.